In today's video, I'm going to be doing the 2015 NBA redraft. For those of you who consistently watch this channel, you know that redrafts are my thing. I love to look back at past drafts and look at really how different the redraft is than how the actual draft went down. I've already done the redrafts all the way from the 2010 draft to the 2014 draft, and today I'm doing the 2015 one. Then I'll probably do one or two more to end off the series of the 2010s decade redraft. And in terms of this draft, the 2015 draft, it has the potential to be one of the best we've ever seen. There's lots of talent in this draft, and even players that are still developing in today's NBA in 2021, but it's a very good draft. Of the ones that I've done, I think 2011 and 2014 are the best so far, but this one definitely has a chance to be one of the best as well. So before we start, if you guys are new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and for those of you that are new here, the way I do redrafts is theoretically like the players are rookies and they're coming into the NBA in today's NBA. So I'm going to look at things like how their careers have gone so far consistently, when they've hit their prime, what their prime looked like, and their future as well. But I'm also going to be factoring a little bit their fit on the team in today's NBA. So with that being said, let's get started. With the first overall pick in the redraft, the Timberwolves are selecting Karl-Anthony Towns with the first pick, just like they did in real life. And this is a pretty rare scenario where we see the guy that went first overall in the real draft go first overall in the redraft again. And we know that Karl-Anthony Towns has definitely lived up to the hype of being a #1 overall pick. He's come in and been one of the best offensive centers in the game today, if not the best offensive center in the game today. And I actually went through a phase where I legitimately thought that Karl-Anthony Towns was the best center in the league because of just how good of a scorer he is. He's such a good offensive player, and last year he averaged 27 points per game, and he was literally shooting 40% from 3 as a center. That's the best part of his game, is how he can stretch it out and really not play like a traditional center, but he can handle the ball as well, even pull up and shoot the 3. He has a great mid-range shot, and we all know how he can score down in the paint and in the post, down low. He's an incredible offensive player, probably a top 10 offensive player in the league right now in my opinion. He's had a great career up to this point. The only thing holding him back is his defense, which for me, I just think he needs to put in more effort on that end of the floor, and he could be a pretty good defender. And that was the reason why I considered him not going first overall in this redraft, but because of how good he is offensively, he is going first overall once again. With the second overall pick in the redraft, the Lakers are selecting Devin Booker. In the real draft, he went 13th overall, a big steal here in the middle of the first round. And we know what Booker's done throughout his career so far. He's averaged at least 25 points per game throughout his career and is really a good overall scorer who again can score near the rim in transition, can shoot the mid-range at a very high rate, handle the ball, isolate himself on the offensive end of the floor, and shoot the 3 at a very high level. The only reason he's not ranking higher is because he hasn't even made the playoffs yet in his career, but that's not necessarily his fault. He's been stuck in Phoenix on a bad team, and now that he has another star alongside him in Phoenix in Chris Paul, he's going to probably make the playoffs and really start being considered as a winning player. It was a toss-up between him and Karl-Anthony Towns. I ended up going with Towns just because of his size and his versatility on offense as well, but it was very close, and Devin Booker's going here to the Lakers with the second overall pick. With the third overall pick in the 2015 redraft, the 76ers are selecting Kristaps Porzingis. In the real draft, he went 4th, so he's sticking right around the area that he was in the real draft as well. In the redraft, and in terms of his fit on the Sixers here, he'd fit in great. He'd be basically their starting power forward, being able to stretch the floor for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid on offense, and then basically get a lot of backup center minutes behind Embiid too, doing what he does best and being a defender inside the paint and blocking shots. And that's why he's going here at 3, is because on offense he's a pretty versatile player that can stretch the floor and really be a streaky 3-point shooter, shooting the 3 at very high rates when he's at his best. He's versatile, he can handle the ball, shoot the mid-range, and basically score anywhere on the court. He can improve a little bit on his inside scoring, which is why he's not going a little bit higher, and I think he can do that because he's literally 7'3", but his offensive game is very versatile, and he's a good defender in the paint as well, and because of these reasons, he is going here at 3 in the redraft. I mean, injuries have taken a bit of a toll on him throughout his career, but once he gets that figured out, he's going to be a great player in the NBA for years to come. With the 4th overall pick in the redraft, the New York Knicks are selecting D'Angelo Russell. In the real draft, he went 2nd overall, and in the early years of his career with the Lakers, maybe it looked like he was going to be a little bit of a bust maybe, but over the last few years, he's played like an all-star, and is showing pretty much his full potential, being a good playmaker out there on the court, especially with the Minnesota Timberwolves. We're seeing really just how good his basketball IQ is, his court vision, and his passing, and he's a good overall scorer too, very crafty at finishing around the rim. He's, like I said, been playing like an all-star over the last few years, so he's going here at 4, and he'd fit in fantastically with the Knicks too because they're in desperate need of a starting point guard. With the 5th overall pick in the redraft, the Magic are selecting Christian Wood, who went undrafted. He's easily the steal of the draft, not even going in the top 60 to going into the top 5, and he's really going this high because of how he's breaking out this season. And I actually made this redraft before the season, and I had him in the 10 spot. He's literally moved up 5 spots just because of how much he's breaking out. I've talked about him many times on the channel. We know how good of a roll man he is to the basket, slipping past defenders in the pick and roll, catching lobs and finishing them with ease, and he's also very good at scoring in the post, scoring near the rim in any way, shape, or form. He can stretch it out and shoot the 3, and he's turning into a good defender as well, especially at the rim, shot blocking and rebounding. He's a very good overall player, and with the Magic, he'd fit in as their starting power forward and also get some backup center minutes behind Nikola Vucevic and really improve their overall play style a lot. With the 6th pick in the redraft, the Kings are selecting Montrezl Harrell. He went 32nd overall in the real draft, just missing out on the first round, but he's obviously a big steal here, moving up to 6 in the redraft. As we know, he won the 6th Man of the Year last year, and he's one of the most energetic players on the court that I've ever seen. He can just give so much effort on the defensive end of the floor, protecting the rim, and he'll literally do anything to grab a rebound or block a shot on that end of the floor. And then he's an incredible, energetic player on the offensive end of the floor, setting screens, cutting to the basket, and scoring at the rim at a very high rate. He'd fit in well with the Kings too because they need a backup center, and that's why he's going here at 6. With the 7th pick in the redraft, the Nuggets are selecting Miles Turner, the 3rd center drafted in a row here. Both the Magic, Kings, and the Nuggets all need some centers, and there's a lot of center talent in this draft, but most of it's because the team needs. The Nuggets definitely need a backup center if they're not going to play Bol there, but Miles Turner could come off their bench and provide them with some floor spacing. He's good in the pick and pop, and his best value is his shot blocking, and when he's at his best, he's averaging 4 blocks per game. That's exactly what the Nuggets need to improve their defense, and they literally don't have a shot blocker other than Bol, who, like I mentioned, they won't give minutes. But so Turner would fit in great with them, and over his career, he's been a good overall scorer, rebounder, and like I mentioned, an incredible shot blocker. So he deserves to go this high, and he'd fit in great with the Nuggets. With the 8th pick in the redraft, the Detroit Pistons are selecting Kelly Oubre, and it's pretty simple. They just need the best overall player here, and that would be Oubre. He's been breaking out a little bit over the last few years, and throughout his career as an entirety, he's been an average defender throughout it. And over the last few years, he's breaking out offensively. He's a very good scorer around the rim, very electric in the paint on the offensive end of the floor, and he's a good 3-point shooter as well, especially in the corners. He's a corner specialist and a very good 3-point shooter there, and the Pistons need the best overall player, and that's what he is. With the 9th pick in the redraft, the Charlotte Hornets are selecting Josh Richardson. He's a big steal here. He went 40th overall in the real draft, so he's moving up 31 spots all the way to 9 in the redraft, and he's going here because the Hornets could really use some perimeter defense, and that's what he's known for. Throughout his career, he's been a very good defender, especially on the perimeter. On offense, he's been pretty much average throughout his career. He's a decent shooter, an average overall offensive player, an average overall scorer, but like I mentioned, he's known for his defense. He's a very good defender, and the Hornets could use some of that here with the 9th pick in the redraft. With the 10th pick, the Heat are selecting Norman Powell. He's one of the biggest steals in the draft as well, going 46th overall, and I'm a Raptors fan, as you guys know who watch the channel, and I think Norman Powell is a really underrated player who would be going a lot higher in this draft if he was more consistent in the early years of his career. But he's been a pretty inconsistent player on the offensive end throughout his career. But when he's at his best, he can put up close to 20 points per game. He's a very good 3-point shooter, and he'd fit in perfectly with the Heat's offense. There's a lot of off-ball screening, off-ball movement, and shooting. He'd be great at that, and he'd fit in perfectly with their zone defense as well. And Norman Powell is a guy that if he can be consistent throughout the rest of his career, I can see him moving up in this redraft. But for now, he's going to the Heat, which is a great fit. With the 11th pick, the Pacers are selecting Bobby Portis. For me, Bobby Portis has always been a pretty underrated player who's really versatile on the offensive and defensive end of the floor. and I think he'd fit in pretty well with the Pacers too. I think he'd play great with guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Domantas Sabonis, and he'd come off their bench, provide them with some versatility, and add to their depth. So he's going here at 11 in the redraft, and he'd fit in well. With the 12th pick, the Jazz are selecting Terry Rozier. He'd fit in well with the Jazz because they need a backup point guard, and in the real draft, Terry Rozier went 16th overall, so he was moving up just a little bit, and I think he would move up this redraft because of how well he's played this season and last season. But throughout most of his career, he's been a role player, a pretty good one, but like I said, I think he could move into the top 10 in this redraft as the years go on because of how good he's been offensively in the recent years. With the 13th pick, the Suns are selecting Jahlil Okafor. As we know, he went 3rd overall in the real draft, definitely didn't live up to the potential of being a top pick. A lot of people consider him a bust, but for me, he's actually still making the lottery here because he's a pretty good inside presence and has been a decent role player throughout his career so far and deserves to squeak into the lottery of the redraft. And lastly, finishing off the lottery of the redraft with the 14th pick, the Thunder are selecting Emmanuel Moody, who in the real draft went 7th overall, didn't live up to his full potential and is moving down a little bit in the redraft, and really his main problem throughout his career has been inconsistently. At times, he's been a really good role player, especially in his short stint with the New York Knicks, and how when he's at his best, he's a really good scorer around the rim and a pretty good playmaker. But like I said, inconsistency has held him back a little bit, and he's coming in at 14th in the redraft. So as usual, I have some honorable mentions here who just missed out on the lottery. The first one is Cedi Osman, who went 31st overall, again just missing out on the first round of the draft, and in the recent years he's been a really good player for the Cavs, playing his role as the starting small forward and could be in the lottery of this redraft as the years go by. He just needs to improve a little bit more. Another one is Justice Winslow, who went 10th overall. Not quite the player that people were expecting him to be, but he just misses out on the lottery as well. And the other is Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, the hustle man who's pretty good on the defensive end of the floor, but he's been inconsistent on offense throughout his career and just misses out on the lottery. And last but not least, my favorite part of redrafts is looking at the busts, the people that went very high in the draft and turned out to not make the lottery in the redraft. The first one's the 5th overall pick, Mario Hezonja, who really hasn't done anything big throughout his career except for dunk on Giannis, and I'm putting that in air quotes because he literally didn't even dunk on him. Anyway, he's a bust for sure. The other one is Willie Cauley-Stein, who went 6th overall. And at times he's looked like an okay role player, but hasn't lived up to his defensive potential, and really on offense doesn't do much except for grab rebounds and get some easy dunks every now and then, so he's a bust as well. And the last one is Stanley Johnson. He went 8th overall. He had big expectations coming into the league, but he really hasn't gotten a lot of playing time because he's not a good overall player, and at best is a guy that plays average defense and comes in sometimes to defend the ball. So there you have it. That is my redraft of this 2015 NBA draft. As I mentioned, be sure to check out the other redrafts that I've done on this channel. The playlist to them will be linked down below in the description. I've done the redrafts from 2010 all the way up until now 2015, and I'll probably post the 2016 one as well shortly, so stay tuned for that, and be sure to watch the previous ones if you haven't already. Thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to follow my Instagram account for this channel. It is at danieldelari.yt. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you guys next video.